Welcome. We're here with Alba Cordero Soto. You are a fellow coach, and I want to welcome you to Multifaceted AF, the podcast.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here. My name is Alba Cordero Soto, as you had mentioned. We're a part of a coaching network together. I'm here to support you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
So welcome to the couch. As a part of just the conversation, I really just want to talk to you about what it means to be multifaceted. What does being multifaceted mean to you? So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the different parts of who you are.
Awesome. So I am a mother of 6. I am an addictions nurse. I am a coach, an author, a transformational speaker. I do a lot of different things. And what multifaceted means to me today is different than what multifaceted meant to me, let's say 6 years ago when I first heard the word. So for me, in my journey to understanding the word multifaceted, at first I saw it as like wearing multiple faces, right? So it's different sides of me. And as I was struggling with people pleasing and struggling to just try to be all things to all people, I just thought that that's what that meant. And it was so suiting. It was so fitting of me as I was struggling to just deal with that this was just a manifestation or a coping skill as a result of my trauma. And it's very different than what multifaceted means to me now, which is just to show up authentically in all of these different spaces and give myself the permission to win at all of them.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's very real. And I think that evolution of the meaning is very real. In different seasons, you kind of show up differently. And you talked a little bit about the kind of people pleasing that was happening before, but now it really is taking back that ownership of who you are and how you show up. So that's amazing. So you talked about being a mom of 6. That's
multifaceted.
That's a lot of kids. That's what I was going to say. So what does that look like? What is being a mother and like that balance? So you listed all those things. What does balance look like for you?
So I, honestly, it's about being graceful with myself, graceful with the individuals around me. It's something that I practice in a way that gives me peace, and it allows me to exude that peace and ultimately be able to have that sense of balance. So it's not easy. I have to cater to my husband. I have to cater to the 6 kids that we have. And there's always enough time and enough of me to go around for however it slices out in the day. So it just always works out that way. But I think for me, it's leading with grace.
So leading with grace and giving yourself grace. That's very big. That's very important. I think in everything that we do is the ability to give ourselves grace. So talk to me about your coaching and what the kind of specialty coaching that you offer.
So for me, I'm a trauma liberation coach. My coaching has evolved over time in that it's still very much centered in really getting rid of the guilt and the shame that we all carry as a result of experiencing trauma, right? And I had to understand that a lot of the ways that I kind of was healing and evolving and growing was centered around the pain that we experienced as opposed to the liberation of that, right? So that's why it's trauma liberation coaching as opposed to sitting in the issue or sitting in the stuckness or in what kind of got us here in the first place. So while there is a connection in terms of the trauma, it's more so about how do we move past that? Can we allow ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves and allow ourselves to show up without having to be in a reactive phase, but more so being responsive and being responsible for our own healing.
Talk to me a little bit about your book. So you do have a book.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. What does that work look like to you?
One of the first book that I wrote was a collaboration with other authors. It's called Fire Starters. It's really about being the change that you want to see in the world. And this book was birthed actually in the midst of COVID, right? So here we are having this opportunity, what I considered a forced opportunity to slow down, to really listen to our inner voice. And in that, I was inspired to go ahead and share my story in a way that inspires others to also do the same. So that's in essence like how the book was birthed, but it's just an amazing group of individuals that are just out here trying to inspire and spark change and hope in the midst of the chaos.
So when you think about the impact that you want to have, whether it's on the clients that you work with from a coaching perspective, the children that you're raising, what is the impact that you want to have on the world?
When you say impact, I hear legacy in my mind in terms of what is it that I want them to say when I'm not around, right? Ultimately being a chain breaker, a curse breaker, really ultimately no longer living in that, I'm doing this because my parents did this and my parents' parents did this and they did this and they did this, right? So I'm trying to ultimately figure out how can I best support each of my children and myself throughout this journey without having to come from a place of pain, come from a place of patterns, come from a place of like what's familiar. So it's like, okay, this is, uncharted territories, and we can be honest about the fact that this is awkward at first. We can be vulnerable and say like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing right now, or I too struggled with this when I was younger. And those things are opportunities for us to be able to grow and inspire others. And that's ultimately what I want to be able to do, break the cycle and continue to inspire that change that will be like a trickle effect.
That's amazing. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to go to the affirmation deck. So you are very familiar with the affirmation deck, the multifaceted manifestation affirmation deck. You have a deck of your own. So we're going to pull a card, but I also want to hear a little bit more about how you use the cards in your daily practice or like with the work that you do. So first I'll give you a chance to pull a card for yourself.
Perfect.
So tell me what your card says.
This is spot on. I give myself grace. I will remain gentle with myself during tough times.
Oh, wow. So talk to me about what that means for you.
Looks like it's so, mind you, I have had quite the week, right? There was a lot of stuff going on and it felt like very chaotic. And throughout it, I was able to continue to lead with grace, not just grace for myself, but understanding that these individuals that I'm conversing with, even though they're coming to me from a defensive perspective or condescending or whatever it is, it's like they're just human beings trying to do the best they can today. That nobody wakes up in the morning wishing to, mess up someone's day. So in the midst of all of that, I was able to continue to lead with grace and with love and understanding. And ultimately, I just feel like that oftentimes just leads to this feeling of settled. So as I wrapped up a chaotic week, I just was able to just breathe easy, knowing that I was graceful throughout it. And here I am.
That's real. That's very real. All right, I'll pull one. Mine says, my goal is to be the truest and most authentic version of myself in each setting I operate in. And I feel like that is very real. That is literally the essence of what the Multifaceted brand is all about. That is why I have dubbed myself the Multifaceted Mama. It is all about this idea of being your authentic self and showing up very much true to who you are in the spaces and places that you operate in every day in every way. So that's me through and through.
That's so amazing. And honestly, having a deck myself, I find that I always pull the perfect card at the perfect time, and I never have to go back and pull another one. And there are even moments where I'm just like, I think I got this, and I'll pull one anyways, and the blank one will show up. And it's just like, I got this. It's like I knew that I didn't need that affirmation in the moment, that I can affirm myself.
That's very real.
So I really enjoy that blank card as well. So how I use the deck in my daily, so I always keep it in my purse. So that's for starters. I don't go anywhere without it. And as a nurse that works in addictions, oftentimes I'm faced with individuals that don't feel worthy and feel like they've lost that sense of hope. And it could be as a result of their struggle with addictions, or it could be because of their trauma, or it could even because they got a diagnosis of cancer and they have to deal with that, right? So in those moments, I always lean on the affirmation cards to be able to offer them kind of something for them to read out loud, because that's something they struggle with, being able to say it with their own words. It's okay for them to hear somebody else say it, and it's even then it's awkward to receive it. But for them to say it with their own words, I find it to be very powerful. And I also use it in my own personal life.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing to hear. I'm glad that it's something that you use. So I feel like that's a very impactful way to use it, to use it for others. So I love hearing that. I definitely do. I definitely do. So as you think about kind of the journey that you're on, what are some goals that you've set for yourself as you kind of, I mean, we're in a new year, but as you think about kind of the coaching work that you're doing, what are some goals that you've set for yourself that you're looking to achieve?
So for me, it's really about transitioning into the lifestyle that I want and doing those things that it takes to set it up. So it's almost like this is my pillar year, I'll say. It's a setup. So for me, I'm very passionate about being a mom, especially in this time for each of my children in the different ages that they're in. I want to make sure that I'm giving them the best version of myself. It's also a situation that, like, I enjoy what I do with nursing, but I know it's a means to an end. Like, I can see that there is some evolution happening there, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with letting go and surrendering to what is. And in order for me to truly make the impact and be that legendary person that I'm put here to be, I need to show up in the spaces where I make the most impact. And that means in my coaching business, that means speaking, that means being an author, and that ultimately means, most importantly, in my home. So being the CEO of my house and having to juggle a lot of things, it's just not something that I'm okay with doing, knowing that there will be balls that will be dropped, and it's okay, right? But I don't want to drop any one of my children, right? Those are glass balls.
No, absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say. If you think about it, we're all juggling, and it absolutely is. It's a juggling act, and there are some balls that are made of glass. You can't drop those ones, but then there are some rubber balls, and it's okay if it drops. And then there are some plastic ones, and they can bounce and roll, and it's not the ideal, but it's okay. We can rebound. So I think it is important to kind of figure out what are those glass ones? What are the glass ones that we don't want to drop? What are the ones that we know we want to protect at any cost, versus the ones that it might be okay for it to fall between the cracks because we know we can rebound and we can kind of get that back. So that's very real. That's very real kind of work that we all have to do.
And in terms of goals, it's actually really to be more visible in my business in a way that builds up that credibility and the following that I'm looking for, in a way that I'm no longer afraid to be seen. I'm no longer trying to dim my light. I'm no longer trying to play it small. So in that, I know that moments like this are important. I know that that has value. So it's really about making sure that I'm being visible in my business and authentic with my branding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if there are any potential future kind of clients listening, what would you want to say to them?
I would say it's so, so, so important to surrender, right? Surrender to our healing process, surrender to our most authentic self. And I know what it's like to wear a mask every day. I know what it's like to smile though my heart is breaking, and to continue to fake it till I make it. And I did a really good job at it. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I considered myself to be an expert bullshitter. I'm like, I can do this. I got this. Put me anywhere and I'll figure it out, right? So I know that those particular that way of life is ultimately not fulfilling, right? I was constantly burning out. I was constantly crashing and burning. My relationships reflected that, right? It reflected the chaos that was within me. And in those moments where I looked around and I realized that my partners that I was selecting, or the friends that I kept, or the different situations were the same toxic individuals that were familiar to me. And I couldn't continue to point fingers anymore. I had to recognize that as I was pointing fingers, there were three pointing back at me. And it's like, rather than what are these people doing to hurt me, or why are all these people hurting me, I had to sit down and realize that the more I heal, the more I will no longer tolerate or accept relationships that aren't loving and reciprocal. So ultimately, what I would say is if you want to live a true, authentic life that is both just fulfilling, but also surrounding yourself by loving and reciprocal individuals, it's time. It's time. And it's really not scary. Like, I feel like healing is a lifelong journey. I don't know if I'll ever get there completely and say, hey, this is the destination, because there's always more to learn. There's always more to heal. It's just more so like, I considered it to be such a scary undertaking because I had so many skeletons, because I had so much, swept under the rug. So having faced it, I'm like, wait a minute. Life is so much better when you're just honest with yourself, when you're honest with the people around you, and you're able to just show up authentically. So I would just say, don't.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That's amazing. Well, Alba, thank you so, so much for coming and talking to me. It was a pleasure to have you. So cheers.